way harder than it should have been.
Yeah, baby. It's good to see you, buddy. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
no worries. Thank you. Oh, I
Right
like the
on.
Rage Against the Machine poster in the back.
Oh yeah, I know, right? Got the rage, got the zap. Yeah,
Oh
man.
yeah, yeah. Very nice.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
nice.
Right on. So yeah, it's got a good ring to it. The Stanley Cup winning retired NHL defenseman. Fuck, dude, that must feel nice to because there's a lot of guys that play the game that never win the cup, right? Of course, that's the
Thank God. Thank God I had one good year. I didn't have many, but the one good year was a really good year. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, it was a special year. I'm actually going to run into one of the guys, hopefully, either today. Rod Brindamore, he's the head coach for the Hurricane or for Carolina now, but
Mhm.
Carolina's in town. They play Calgary tomorrow, so it's always nice when they come to town. I get to catch up with. Now I really don't know any of the players. It's all like coaching staff and shit because I'm getting old. But
Right, exactly.
yeah, yeah, no, it was a great year. I mean, obviously, I was there's a lot of there was a lot of luck involved too. I mean, I was in Calgary in 2004.
Yeah, it was the trade that kind of got you there in the first place.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah.
I was like, I finally signed a contract after we go to the finals. I finally signed a one-way contract. I'm pumped to be in Calgary. Then there's a fucking lockout. There's no more NHL. I'm back in the minors again. I'm like, Jesus, I cannot get out of this league. And then I had a good year in the minors, and that year we split a farm team. Calgary and Carolina split the Lowell Lock Monsters. So
Oh,
half the team was Carolina guys, and Carolina scouts and general manager and head coach, because it was a lot closer to come watch games because Carolina's on the East Coast. Like the Calgary guys didn't come out there much because there was no NHL and it's a long ways.
right.
And I had a good year, and Carolina ended up trading for me. So what I thought was a bad thing, the lockout, to be honest, looking back, it was the best thing that happened in my career because I
Right.
ended up getting traded to Carolina because of it. And with the rule changes, I think we had a really good team for sure, but we were like picked to finish. Back then there was 30 teams. I think everybody picked us to finish. They were shitty in the year before the lockout, so everybody thought we were going to be shitty again. So I think we were picked to finish like 28th in the league. Like we were supposed to be horseshit. And we were honestly, I think we lost 2 games in a row, like a couple times, but it was pretty rare. And I think we lost 3 games in a row one time during the year towards the end. And other than that, yeah, we were pretty solid. So yeah, it's weird how it works out. What I thought was awful ended up being the best thing that could have happened to me.
Right. Yeah. What a trip. And
Yeah.
so like how old were you when you realized like, man, I'm going all the way. Like I can do this.
Like getting to the NHL.
Yeah.
You know what? Late. Like I grew up just outside of Edmonton. Yeah, being totally honest, I played hockey because I enjoyed playing sports. I played hockey in the winters, and I played baseball in the summers.
Hmm.
Compared to my competition, I was way better at baseball. Like I played for Team Alberta. Yeah, like I thought I was maybe going to play, maybe a junior college or something for baseball. And then as
Really?
I got older, like I was like I loved hockey because I enjoyed competing.
Yeah.
But I wasn't great by any stretch of the imagination. Like I think if you asked anybody that I grew up playing against, they would be like, yeah, I mean, he worked hard, but like I wasn't like scoring goals. I wasn't doing anything like that. I
Mm.
would say when I first like realized that maybe I could do this for like a living and maybe I could make it to the NHL, I'd say it was probably my draft year when I was 18, 19 years old. Yeah. When the central scouting like rankings, I was shitty in midget. I broke my ankle. I had a terrible year. The next year, I ended up playing in the Alberta Junior Hockey League here, and I had a pretty good year there. And like I was a little more effective. Like not that I was the toughest guy in the world, but I was physical, and I have a little
Mm.
bit of size to me. So once you get to junior hockey and like fighting was a little bit a part of it, I got some more space because, I was also like, I could be mean once in a while when I was pissed off. So I got a little more space in the ice, which gave me more time to do some things because I didn't have great hands. Then I
Mm.
ended up going to college instead of going to the major junior. That was totally pretty much by accident too. I was never planning. I couldn't have named one college hockey team. I had no fucking clue what NCAA hockey was back then. But I
Wow.
went on a fly down to North Dakota and the only reason why I went was because I'm like, I was 17 years old and I'm like, oh, I get to go on a trip without my parents? I'm like, oh,
I'm in.
yeah, I'm coming. North Dakota sounds great. Let's
Yeah,
do it.
yeah.
And I went to a game, or went to a weekend series down there, and like the rink was packed and college students. I was like, wow, I'm like, this is awesome. So I ended up going my first year in North Dakota. I was like very average. I played pretty much every game, but didn't play much. They won the national title the year before, so they had a good team. And then I started getting better every year. And after my second year, I'd say halfway through my second year, something clicked for me. The game got slower between my ears. I
Mm.
started making a little bit of plays and stuff. And I would say when the central scouting rankings came out, and I was ended up being like ranked in like the top 50 North American skaters, something like that. And then when I actually got drafted in the second round, then I was like, okay, I'm like, well, somebody must like me.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, because you went
yeah,
like, wasn't it 42?
yeah, 42nd overall. Yeah,
Dude, that's
yeah,
fucking amazing, right? Like that's
yeah. I know
amazing.
it was awesome. Yeah, for sure, it
Yeah.
was awesome. I just kind of steadily got better. I got significantly better from, I'd say, 17 years old till the time I was 20. I
Mm.
kind of made some. So I guess I was kind of like a late bloomer. I guess if that would
Yeah.
be called, if that would be the definition of it. Then, so
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so what like the Devils, of course, they drafted you. So what stands out from that day still? Like, is there like specific things that like when you think back to that day, like what still
From
sticks
the
in your
draft
memory?
day,
Yeah.
yeah, like the draft was in Boston, so I went and I did the combine in Toronto, and then New Jersey back then with Lou Lamoriello. He's on the island now. I don't know if he still does this, but like New Jersey, they always did things like a little bit differently. So New Jersey had like their own little combine. So guys that they'd like, so you go do the combine in Toronto, and if they liked you, they'd be like, "Hey, do you mind coming over and working out for us? We got next door or whatever." So they had this like running test. Basically, it's run until you drop. They want to see
Oh,
once you get to your maximum heart rate, how long you're willing to hang in there. Is basically what the test is.
sure.
I did good at that. And so after they're like, well, when are you getting to the draft? And I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I don't think I'm going to go. I'm like, my parents are in Edmonton. I'm like, I live in Grand Forks, North Dakota. I'm like, I need to work because I got no money. So I got to paint dorm room walls. I'm like, I don't think I'm going to go. I don't want to come and then like, not get drafted or get drafted in the fifth round or whatever. I think I'm just going to stay home. And they said, they're like, no, no, no. Like, you should go. I'm like, oh, okay. So I knew they liked me. So I
Hmm.
tell my parents, I'm like, let's go to Boston. So we go out to Boston. And what sticks out for me that day, so I'm sitting with my family in the stands. I remember just like a couple of things. For some reason, I'd never been to Boston before. I didn't know anything about the city. There were some bunch of Bruins fans across the aisle from us. And a bunch of them were like, Boston picked. I think I can't remember who they picked in the first round. They might have picked Nick Boynton. I think he might have went back in the draft.
Mm.
Anyways, a bunch of them started screaming at me. We should have drafted you, Commodore, this and that. I was like, people know who I am. And so that sticks out for me. And then I thought that I was going to get picked. My dad's a Warrior. So he's like, where do you think you're going to get picked? I'm like, New Jersey likes me. I'm like, they're picking at the end of the first round. And I'm like, Washington likes me. So I'm like, I think maybe there's an outside chance that maybe I go at the end of the first round, maybe to New Jersey.
Hmm.
Or I'm like, Washington has 4 picks right at the beginning of the second round. I'm like, I think I'm definitely going to Washington if New Jersey doesn't take me.
Hmm.
He's like, oh, okay. So New Jersey takes a goalie, Ari Ahonen, so I don't go. And my dad's getting a little irritated. Like, and I'm like, relax, Dad. I'm not a first round pick, anyways. Let's be serious here. And so I'm like, I'm probably going to Washington here. So Washington has 4 picks from like pick 31 to 40, 4 picks. They drafted defenseman. They drafted another defenseman. I think they picked 1 forward. And then I think 3 out of their 4 picks were D. So at least 2 of them were. I think it was 3 out of 4. And with each pick, my dad's getting more and more pissed off. He's like, we shouldn't have came here. What the fuck are we doing here? I'm like, relax. I'm
All
like,
good.
New Jersey has another pick here. Hopefully it's now. And then New Jersey called my name and got to go down. It was really cool. Met Larry Robinson, met their staff, took a couple pictures or whatever. And yeah, I ended up going. They had a little like celebration at one of the hotels that my family and I were all invited to. So it was cool. I remember the food, like I'd never seen, they had like, it was at a really nice hotel, like a Ritz Carlton or something like that. And the
Mm.
spread was like, seafood tower. Like, I mean, it was nice. I'd never seen anything like that before.
Mhm.
So yeah, I remember the food being unreal, but it was a cool experience. I'm at the end of the day, I'm glad I went, obviously.
Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
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 I don't, want to get too much into your how much money you made and stuff. Obviously, NHL players make a shit ton of money, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But like, y- I can't remember what the signing was in like early 2000, but I think I remember reading something around the lines that like it was a $15 million deal over 5 years or something like that.
No,
Um,
for like in the early 2000s.
yeah, with the Blue Jackets.
When I signed. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So
but
my big contract that I signed was I signed a 5-year deal for 18.75
that's what
million
it was.
dollars.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm curious of that, like what was the most frivolous thing you bought? Like, fuck this, I don't care what it costs, I'm buying it.
That's a good question. You know what? I didn't I'm not really like a material guy. Like, I'm definitely not cheap. I spend money. I spend all my money on golf and booze, probably, and like nights out. Like, I drive a pickup truck that I won in a raffle here. Like,
Nice.
I have I'd say like the one, I didn't really like treat myself. Like I couldn't believe what was going on either when I signed as a free agent in Columbus. Like I was living in San Diego at the time. I was seeing a girl there, and leading up to July 1st free agency, my agent was like, what are you looking for? And I go, man, I don't even know what to say. I'm like, I just won a couple years ago. I've had a couple good years here. I'm like, I hope the first number, like, like a 3-year deal. I think I'm worth $2 million a year. Like that would
Mhm,
be good.
mhm.
He's like, okay. So then free agency starts, and like 10 minutes into free agency, he calls me. He's like, I got some good news. I'm like, what's that? You wanted a 3-year deal, you were thinking, right? Would be good.
Mhm.
I'm like, yeah, it'd be awesome. He's like, well, what do you think of 5 years? I'm like, perfect. That's awesome. I'm
Totally.
like, and he goes, the first number's not going to be a 2 either. I go, what's it going to be? He goes, it's going to be 3 for sure, and it might even get to 4. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, this is awesome. So when I ended up signing that contract with Columbus, I actually took, I actually haven't said this very often either. I kind of keep it to myself, but I actually took less money. I had a couple of teams that wanted me. I had Columbus,
Mm,
Atlanta were the two teams that wanted the good teams. Atlanta wanted me too. And Atlanta was going to pay me 5 years, and I was going to sign a 5-year deal for 20 million. So $4 million a year.
mm.
But when I was in Carolina, we always would play, and this was back when you played your division like a million times. So I
Yeah.
went to Atlanta to play all the time. And I have nothing against the city of Atlanta. Like the city of Atlanta, it was fun enough. Like we didn't spend a lot of time there because it was a short flight. So we were in and out. But like the rink sucked. There was nobody at the games. And I hated this was a minor thing, but I hated their jerseys. I thought they looked terrible. So I'm like, when it came down to it, it was like Columbus or Atlanta. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to play in Atlanta. Now looking back, if I would have known that Atlanta was going to move to Winnipeg in 2 years, then I might have rethought it, because
Mhm.
Winnipeg is, I'm in Canada.
Sure.
I'm, Winnipeg's 2 hours up the road from North Dakota where I went to school. So I was kind of familiar with the area. But yeah, the only thing I kind of spent money on is once I signed, I called some high school buddies of mine from home. There was like 3 of them. I'm like, pack your shit. You're coming to San Diego. The trip's on me. I'm like,
Nice.
I'm about to sign for some cash here. And they're like, okay. And so we
Yeah.
had a hell of a July 4th weekend. I'll tell you
That's awesome.
that.
So good to be able to do that with buddies, eh?
Yeah, it was good.
Okay, so clearly, winning the cup in 2006 would be a career highlight, right?
Yep.
But like eh, playing in the KHL has got to be up there too, right? Like, tell us some
Yeah.
stories about
Yeah.
being over there, man.
Sure. Yeah. So like when I knew things were kind of done for me NHL wise here, I still wanted to play, but I didn't want to play in the American Hockey League. I played there a ton at the beginning of my career, and I got the utmost respect. Like those guys that play 1,000 games in the American Hockey League, I'll tell you what, I got more respect for that than the guys that play 1,000 games in the NHL. Like, you are grinding it out in the American Hockey League. You are, you are riding the bus. You are not eating, you're not getting on a plane and you got shrimp cocktails and food to, pick from. You're riding the bus. You're having a cold stepped on pizza and you're driving to Hershey and you are grinding it out. So I'm like, I'm not doing the American League anymore. I'm like, and I was lucky enough to play in the World Championships one year for Team Canada in 2007. And one of the only reasons why I got on the team is because the tournament was in Moscow and a lot of the good defensemen didn't want to go. They're like, I'm not going to Russia. So you go down. Eventually they got to me. Steve Yzerman called me. He's like, hey, do you want to play for Team Canada? I'm like, well, yeah. He's like, well, the tournament's in Russia. I'm like, I don't give a shit where the tournament is. I would love to.
Great.
Yeah, I could care less. I'm like, this is my only opportunity to ever do this. So we went over to Moscow. We ended up winning the gold medal. I had a blast. It was a great experience. So that was kind of the reason why I was done. I was like, the only real league that I'm like kind of interested in playing in would be the KHL. I'd like to go back to Russia. So that's kind of how I ended up there. I ended up on an expansion team in Vladivostok, Russia. So I got the contract through Slava Fetisov, who's like, he walks on water over there. I'd love to see. He's like right-hand man of Putin. I would love to see what is in his bank account. I'm sure it is. It starts with B's, billions. But Slava always liked me. He was the assistant coach in New Jersey, the D coach. I worked hard for him. And so he got me this contract. And I was kind of familiar with Russia a little bit. And so I signed the contract. I'm like, Vladivostok. I'm like, where the fuck is Vladivostok?
Yeah,
so
never heard of it.
Map it. Yeah, I've never heard of this place. I Google map it. Well, Vladivostok, for people that don't know, is on the Pacific Ocean, like 60 miles from North Korea. Well, the rest of the league, other than one team, there was one team that was an hour north. The rest of the league is all on the western side of Russia. So every time we had a road trip, we'd play 4 games at home and 4 on the road, and we just kind of go back and forth, and we play a home and home with each team in the league. There was 28 teams in the league. Every time we touched a plane, it was a 10-hour flight minimum. That was to like start the fucking road trip. So I had a great experience in Russia. The hockey was good. Like all those Russians, they can all skate, they can all pass, they can all shoot, they all have all the skills like that. In my opinion, the issue with Russian hockey is their coaching they're like still stuck. They're stuck in the fucking 60s still. Like they haven't, like their attitude is like I was over there playing and, we had some imports on the team, obviously, but most of the guys on the team are Russians and most of them don't speak English. So I'd be out there playing. I can't communicate with these guys. And we would never, like, there was no like defensive zone, like this is what we do in the D zone. Okay. This is what we're going to try and do in the neutral zone. It was like, I asked the assistant coach who spoke some English. I'm like, hey, what are we doing? He's like, well, you're a pro, figure it out. I'm like, figure it out. I'm like, I can't fucking talk to these guys. How am I supposed to figure it out? But that's just how it is over there. So it was a hell of an experience. I had a good time. I actually wanted to go back. I ended up playing 14 years as a pro. I thought 15 years sounds better than 14. And I wanted to go back, but I wasn't going to go back to that team just because the travel was insane. Like I was jet lagged the entire season. Like it's hard. It was hard to play. We made the playoffs, which was a hell of an accomplishment. But it was just too much travel. And there was a team at the time, the year I was there was the year of the Sochi Olympics. So 13, 14 was the Sochi Olympics. And after we got knocked out of the playoffs, my Russian agent called me. He's like, hey, what do you think of Donetsk, Ukraine? I'm like, yeah. I go, I loved it there. I played one game there. I'm like, yeah, I thought the rink was cool. They have money. There was a couple of guys, imports on the team. One of the Randy Robitaille played with him in Ottawa. And they get paid on time. They got lots of cash. I was like, yeah, I'd love to. He's like, okay, I'll get back to you. I'm like, perfect. I'm like, all right, one more year. And then like 5 or 6 days later, I was on my iPad and I clicked the USA Today app and first story, right in the pro-Russian rebels burn arena to the ground, Donetsk, Ukraine. I'm like, you know what? I think that's a sign. Maybe it's time to hang them up. And that was it for me. Yeah, golf clubs was from that point forward.
Yeah, crazy, man. What a crazy story. I have some fan questions here for you.
Oh, okay.
I'm stealing into your time here. I told you it'd be maybe 15, 20. Is that
That's
cool if I grab
okay.
you for a
I
few
don't
more
have.
here?
Yeah, no problem. I'm
Okay,
retired. I'm not
so
listening.
Greg goes, and I'm curious too, actually. Have you ever been starstruck by a player?
That's a good question too. Yeah, yeah. I'd say uh one time that I can remember for sure.
Yeah.
This was like 5 years ago now. I was playing in a member guest golf tournament with another guy that I played with in Carolina with Ray Whitney. So Ray had me
Okay.
down. Yeah, Ray had
Yep.
me down to play in this member guest 5 years ago. And so, long story short, I drive down to Idaho, and me, Ray, and Brett Hedican, another guy who played in Carolina, he was there too. He was with
Well,
somebody, he was a guest of somebody else.
Brett used to
Sitting there.
play in Vancouver as well.
Exactly, yeah.
Yep.
The '94 Vancouver team. Yeah, he
Yep.
started in Van. And so the three of us are sitting there. We're just sitting outside at a big table for like 8, and I'm stuffing my face. We're eating, bullshitting. And I hear this voice behind me, a tap on my shoulder. Hey, Mike, how you doing? You know, do you mind if I sit down? And I can't see who it is. I got a mouthful of food. And I'm like, you know, there's fucking 3, 4 seats. So I got a mouthful of food. I turn to be like, yeah, go ahead. I'm like, yeah, go ahead. I turn around. It's fucking Wayne Gretzky. I'm like,
Nice.
I stop. I'm like, put my fork down. I go, yeah, Mr. Gretzky. I'm like, do you want my seat? I'm like, I can go sit somewhere else. And he laughed. He's like, oh, no. So he sits down and eats with us. And I would say that was like, from what I can remember, that was one time for sure where I was like, you know, I grew up outside of Edmonton, you
Sure.
know, in the '80s, and yeah, obviously he's the greatest player that ever played, his stat for sure,
Yeah.
dominating, and yeah, but he was an awesome dude. Couldn't have been nicer. I actually just saw him a couple weeks ago in Dallas. He was at another event I was at, but yeah, that was a big deal for me. I should have got him to sign something. I haven't done that yet, but I'll run into him again, hopefully.
Yeah. Chris goes, ask him what he thinks about the Hurricanes home game celebrations.
Oh man, yeah, I know what he's talking about. They do. Do you know what they do there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, you know, on one hand, look, I love Carolina. I had a great time there.
It's amazing that they get like the crowd participation and like,
It's
if
crazy.
there's a way to reach your fans and
Yes,
I don't know that there's a bigger and a better way. I just don't know this possible.
100%.
Yeah.
I will admit, the first time I saw it on TV, I was in Don Cherry's corner. I was like, "What the fuck are these guys doing?"
Right.
I'm like, "This is embarrassing." But as time has gone on, and I messaged one of the guys on the team that was there, Justin Williams, him and I'm like, Willie, what the fuck are you guys doing?
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
like, hey, goes, the fans love it. I'm like, and then I sat there and thought about it, and I'm like, you know what?
They
You
do
know,
love it.
when
Yeah.
you're in Vancouver or Calgary or Edmonton, or when you're in a hockey market, people just come to the games. They love hockey. They're knowledgeable. They want to go watch games. When you're in a market down south, like Carolina, Florida,
Right.
Phoenix, places like that, there's other things to do. The
Right.
weather's nice. So whatever you can do to get fans in the building, I am all for. But the short answer to that question, when I first saw it, I was slightly embarrassed.
Like,
Yes.
what is going on here?
Yeah. I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Fuck.
All right. This is a tough question. Mark
Okay.
wants to know if you could put together the ultimate hockey line,
Ooh,
past and present players. Who
ooh.
makes your line?
Oh my God. Well, oh,
Right? Like
yeah. I mean, there's
impossible,
so
man.
many
Like,
good options. Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, you got to put Wayne Gretzky. Um, I'll take. I'll put Connor McDavid on the team for present. I think he's an incredible player.
Mm,
I mean, God, another forward. You know what? I like having some grit on the team. So another forward I would put on there, a BC guy,
mm,
Cam Neely.
mm.
Yeah, I'll put Cam on there.
That for Vancouver fans, of course, is like the why did we get rid of that guy?
Yeah, that was a
Like
bad move.
that was a
That guy.
fucking terrible move.
That was a terrible move. Cam Neely could play hockey any way you wanted to.
Yeah.
And then on defense, try and do a present guy and past. For a present guy, he's just kind of getting started, but I think people saw a lot of him last year. I'll put Cale Makar on the team. I think that kid is incredible. I think he's the only defenseman in the league that I can think of, anyways, that can keep up with McDavid. And then another like old school guy. You know what? I'm going to go with one of my buddies. He was a hell of a player too. I'll go with Scott Niedermayer.
Yeah.
Another BC guy, actually.
Crusher too, man. That
Yeah,
guy fucking pound.
Yeah. And then in net, it's tough to go. I played with, I'll go with Martin Brodeur.
Yeah.
He was excellent. He was a treat to play with. I didn't play with him long, but it was so nice, especially when they didn't have that fucking trapezoid. So back in the day when that wasn't there, when I was in New Jersey, you know, guys would dump the puck. I'm like, perfect. I just go stand on the boards, be like, here, Marty, because he passed the puck better than I did. So I just be an option. He would pass it to the forwards. I'm like, perfect. I don't have to do anything. It was great.
Yeah.
That's a tough question.
That's a tough one. Yeah. What are you binge watching lately?
You know what? I don't watch a ton of TV. I mean, I watch a lot of sports. You know what? The last show I watched, I'm almost done it, is what's it called? Animal Kingdom? What is it?
Yeah, it's on Animal Kingdom, right? Yeah.
Animal Kingdom, right? The show about like in California, like the crooks or whatever, the family of crooks.
Yeah.
I watched that. I watched a lot of, I like watching documentaries. One documentary, if you haven't seen it, you should watch. Remember the name Manti Te'o, the football player?
Yeah, dude, that fucking story is insane, right? Like,
insane. Have you seen the documentary?
Yeah, it's insane.
Insane. I'm glad he did that documentary. Like, I remember when that came out. That came out in like 2011, I think it was.
Yeah.
Like, it was, I mean, that was major worldwide fucking news.
It was like everywhere, man. And now
everywhere.
To see and like actually watch what happened is like
crazy, mind-blowing. And to like hear him talk about it, you know, like everybody else, when it came out of the news, you're like, what the fuck is this guy doing? This guy's an idiot. Totally, and then when you watch the documentary, now, was he naive? And
sure.
I mean, I'm not sure how you date a girl for 3 years and never meet her. Like, okay, right. You made some mistakes for sure. But when you listen to him, it's like, man, this guy got really, he made some mistakes, but this guy got fucked over bad.
Big.
His attitude, like, you know, how he's, you know what, you know, I forgive him. I mean, it ended up being a guy he was talking to. I mean, it's a crazy story. Anybody who hasn't watched it needs to watch that documentary.
Yeah, that's a must watch.
Must watch,
like sure. Even if you don't like football, it's a must watch.
Yeah. You don't need to like football. You don't even have any idea who this guy is. It doesn't matter. It is worth fucking watching.
Like it's to the point of like you couldn't even make that shit up.
No. Yeah. Like there's no way that dude's lying. Like it's you can't. I don't even know how you would think to make some shit up like that. There's no way.
Yeah. What was the music like in the Commodore house as a kid growing up?
The music scene in my house was it was all hard rock. It was all hard rock. AC/DC was a fixture. That was the main one. I was always, when I was a kid growing up, like I was kind of into the grunge kind of, so like Nirvana, and I listened to a lot of Green Day back in the day. Some kind of like NoFX and so a little bit of punk stuff, and then not so much that anymore. But I'm still a big like AC/DC guy, Metallica, more like hard rock. So whenever I get a chance to see Metallica, or actually a concert that's on my list, is you got the poster in the back, Rage Against the Machine. I listened to them a ton too.
Did you hear that the 2023 tour is canceled? The fucking Zach fucking ripped his whatever the what's that called, the tendon in the back of the Achilles tendon.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
He ripped like 92% of it off.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And apparently like the 8% that's still there is like just barely hanging on.
Yeah. You need some time off. Yeah, so I bought tickets. Rage Against the Machine. You know, in Calgary, we have the Saddle Dome here, which is obviously needs to be replaced, and it's shit for concerts.
Yeah.
So most bands don't stop here; they just go straight to Edmonton.
Mm.
But Rage Against the Machine had a concert booked here on their tour it was going to be June of 2020. So I bought tickets. I bought 4 tickets. I invited a couple of my buddies up from Scottsdale who hadn't seen Rage, but they love Rage. So all fired up. And then March of 2020, fucking COVID hits. So that obviously gets canceled. They rebooked the concert. So I think I still have these tickets. I paid for them.
Yeah.
So I was all fired up again. I'm messaging I'm like, hey, it's back on. It's coming. And then this happens. I'm like, I don't know if it's meant to be. Might just have to be fucking stream their music.
It's like, screw it. Well, keep the tickets, man. Eventually,
yeah, I'm keeping the tickets.
They're going to have to eventually play, right?
Eventually, they got to come here. Fuck. I'll wait as long as I have to.
And what was your first concert that you went to?
Ooh, that's another good question. The first concert that I went to, the first one that I remember, now this is a smaller venue and it was in Edmonton, was like a band called, I don't know if you would have, a band called The Smalls.
Yeah.
You heard of them?
Yeah, from Kamloops.
Yeah. They were like huge in Edmonton. That was the first concert that I went to, it was a small venue. This is when I was in high school. And I want to say the first like concert like at a big arena that I went to was first one that I can remember. It might not be the first. It's got to be. It was Kid Rock. I saw Kid Rock here in Calgary. I had got free tickets, and when I first got the tickets, they're like, "Hey, you want to?" I'm like, "Nah, Kid Rock." I'm like, he sings about himself. I'm like, fuck it, I'll go.
Yeah, and probably just an amazing show.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
He's one of my. I've now seen him 12 times since. Wow. He was amazing. He played every instrument. It was awesome. And he was on the ice when we won the Stanley Cup in Carolina. So that was kind of cool too. That's kind of a good story for like a music end of things. Yeah. We won the Stanley Cup in Carolina. We were up 3-1 against Edmonton. Game 5 was in Carolina. We get a power play in overtime. I'm like, this game's fucking over because our power play is good. So I'm not on the power play. I'm sitting on the bench. And I'm like, this is fucking done. There's like a 35% chance we're going to score here. We cough up the puck. Fernando Pisani puts it underneath the bar. Short end of goal against. Back to Edmonton. Go play in Edmonton. We get our asses kicked, which not even close. Game's over in the first 5 minutes. I'm like, this is about survival. I'm like, this fucking game is over. I'm like, I'm just going to make sure I don't get put into the upper deck. And so we're going back for game 7. This is it. I'm like, and my parents want to come down. And so I had to tell my parents, I'm like, you know what? I go, I would love for you guys to come down. But I'm like, look, if we lose this game, I go, you're not going to want to be around me. I'm not going to want to be around anybody. I just want to do things how I've always done them. And that's on my own. And my parents are great. They're like, we get it. No problem. We'll watch it on TV. Good luck. I'm like, thank you. So we end up winning. And they actually had to change the rules in the NHL after this. So we win. And there had to have been fucking 300 people on the ice. There we got like parents, grandparents, cousins, uncles. I'm like, who the fuck are half these people? Yeah. And so I'm standing out there. I'm by myself. I'm like, God, I should have flown my parents here. They should be out here for this. But I called them. It was all good. But I'm standing out there just kind of looking around, just kind of taking the moment in or whatever. And I get a tap on my shoulder. Hey, Commie, congratulations. So I figure it's somebody's uncle. I'm like, yeah, turn around and say thank you. Well, it's fucking Kid Rock. I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, Kid Rock. He's like, oh, no, call me Bob. I go, oh, Bob. I go, dude, this is awesome. He's like, congratulations. I'm like, yeah, thanks. I go, hey, Bob, are you sticking around tonight? He's like, yeah. I'm like, can I go out with you? He's like, yeah. I'm like, yes. So we're celebrating in this. Everybody goes into the locker room. Kid Rock comes in, the locker room slammed, could barely move. And then we kick everybody else out that's not. So we kick Kid Rock out. It's just the guys now. And so I'm like, hey, I'll be right out. And he's like, yeah, sounds good. I'm like, I'm going to get to go out with Kid Rock tonight. This is going to be fucking awesome. Yeah. So I'm sitting in my stall. I got my shit off. I just have my long johns on. I want to shower and I want to go. So we're sitting in there. And now the older guys, Rod Brindamore, Glenn Wesley, Brett Hedekin, and some of those guys, they're giving speeches. So I'm listening. I'm sitting here. And they were nice speeches. Don't get me wrong. These guys had awesome careers and it was a great moment. But I'm sitting there and in the back of my head, I'm like, these guys need to wrap this shit up.
I want to go fucking party with Kid Rock.
Party with Kid Rock here. I can listen to these speeches later. But anyways, the speech, and we ended up hanging out in the locker room till like 3 a.m. So I never ended up getting to go out with Kid Rock. My biggest regret about that night. I should have walked out. Fuck it.
Just amazing though. Amazing.
Yeah, it was cool.
Dude, I want to respect your time. I'm going to wrap it up right now.
Cool.
Thank you, man, for taking some time and jumping on. It's,
no worries at all. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Pleasure to talk to you. You're at callme22 on Twitter.
On Twitter, yeah. And then I think Instagram's at MWC22.
That's the one. Yeah, I knew it was different on Instagram.
Yeah. Somebody had to call me too.
Yeah. Well, congrats on the career, man. It's very cool to talk.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. It was nice to meet you, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, for sure, man. We'll see you online. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Take it easy.